Hi, I'm Mike Regan from Transact Technologies, and now that we have a tentative contract on the West Coast ports, there are some important things that you need to know. I'm here today with Jon DeVille, who's the CEO of Supply Chain Edge, and we want to share some important information about recent developments regarding our West Coast ports. Now, over the weekend, it was announced that there is a tentative agreement that's been reached between the Pacific Maritime Association and the International Longshoremen Warehouse Union. Now, while shippers are breathing a sigh of relief, we want to remind you, we're not out of the woods yet. Now, if you want to understand why that's the case, here's what we want you to do. Go to transact.com and listen to our on-the-record interview with Jon Slangerup, who is the CEO of the Port of Long Beach. Now, in that interview, Jon highlighted some very important things you need to know. First, it's going to take about 30 days before this contract can be ratified. Additionally, it's going to take 90 to 120 days before the ports can clear out the backlog and resume normal operations. Now, for those of you that are wondering, how big is the backlog? Well, it's estimated that there are over 500,000 containers waiting to be unloaded, and that is going to have an impact on supply chains throughout the second quarter. Now, one of the things that some of our customers have been doing is looking at this as really a twofold problem. First, they see the containers that are waiting to be unloaded, and there's not a lot they can do. But there are those that are saying, what about the containers that we're going to be shipping in the second quarter? What are some ideas and strategies, Jon, that they can use to make sure that their supply chains don't experience significant interruptions?
Certainly, Mike. And let me simplify this. An all-water service to an East Coast port versus an all-water service to a West Coast port adds about 7 additional days.
Okay.
So if what you said is true, if it's going to take 3 or 4 months to get out of this backlog, then it behooves shippers and importers at this point in time to bring product into East Coast ports. Now, what do you need to do? Right? You need to have good customs relationships. Make sure that you discuss this with your freight forwarders so that they're aware of any changes you might be making to the way in which you import. And there's a myriad of other things, but it all relates to risk mitigation and supply chain protection.
I know, Jon, one of the things your firm has been very big on is encouraging companies to develop a risk mitigation plan. Can you help us understand how this risk mitigation plan might help companies manage through the type of situation we have at the ports?
Exactly, Mike. And I'd love to liken this to Y2K or the high-tech network. Every company that you can think of has a disaster recovery plan for their IT departments, right? But do they have a disaster recovery plan for the supply chains? In most cases, no. And we think that's a critical part of a world-class business.
Okay, so Jon, let me close out by saying one of the things that this risk mitigation plan might address. I was at the Stifel conference recently, and John Larkin and his team put together a great event, and I heard the CEO from a large trucking company say that when this port crisis gets resolved and the ports start unloading these ships, we are going to see a significant capacity crisis. There's just not enough trucks, not enough chassis, not enough drivers to accommodate the kind of flow that's going to occur from the west out to the east. Is that something you would agree with?
I would agree with that, but I would also recommend to those people that are looking at that risk mitigation plan or alternate operating plan that now your key lane segments change. So rather than have a West Coast to East Coast movement, you're going in the opposite direction, and that should be part of your alternate operating plan and your carrier negotiations.
So when you say in opposite direction, you're saying if I have stuff coming to the East Coast, now I'm heading westbound into the central states, et cetera.
Yep.
Okay, great. Well, listen, you mentioned a risk mitigation plan, and one of the things you've been kind enough to offer is to provide our viewers with a copy of how they can put together a good risk mitigation plan. And if you'd like to get your hands on that, it's real easy. Here's what we'd like to have you do. Simply give us a call or send us an email, and we'll be happy to pass along Jon's contact information, or you can reach Jon directly by going to the supplychainedge.com website. Now, we want to remind you, we're on your team, we're here to help, and we are passionate about seeing you be successful, which is why working together, we will get you through this port crisis. Thanks for your time.